Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Industry Insider here on the EKN Radio Network. It's Tuesday, February the 5th, 2019. And again, thank you for tuning in to the EKN Radio Network. Our numbers for January, fantastic. We just continue to grow this program. It's only been a year since we started the EKN Radio Network, but we thank those of you who take the time to give us some feedback, send us emails on Facebook, whatever it may be. But yeah, great numbers to kick off the season here on the EKN Radio Network. Episode number 17 of the Industry Insider. And actually, first time we've had this gentleman with us, but we've definitely been watching the program over the last number of years. I have Marco Oldhafer from the Gear Up F-Series with us. Of course, essentially the Powerhouse Foundation regional program up in the Northeast U.S. Again, Marco and his crew promoting essentially the largest series in the Northeast. It's a 5-weekend program. It hits 4 different states. They start down in North Carolina, of course, with the weather. It's tough to get going up in the Northeast early. Then New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. And as well, a pretty diverse class structure compared to some of the other organizations around the country. They still offer the tag categories and also the home of the only true KZ shifter program in the U.S. So, Marco, there's your intro. Was I pretty much bang on, or did I miss anything?
Well, yeah, I don't need to say much more, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on the podcast.
Well, it's great to have you with us. You know, we've been trying to get different areas around the country. We did I think we did 53 podcasts last year, and not many of them were the industry insiders. Some, of course, industry people, some promoters. So we've got more to hit. Obviously, you were the very top of our box for 2019. You know, one of the things, Marco, we like to do early because, you know, as I said before, we're getting great numbers and across the country, people listening to the EKN Radio Network. And some of them, you know, may not know much about the F-Series. We're going to give you a chance to talk about the history of the F-Series and kind of where you're going. Of course, this whole podcast will talk so much about the 2019 season, but what's your origin story? I always love learning how people got into this sport. What was it, and how did you make your entrance into the sport of karting?
Well, I think I probably made my entrance very much like a lot of people did. I found it through, watching racing on TV. I didn't have any family that was involved in racing, but certainly went and watched a lot of racing, kind of was just involved in a lot of stuff that was speed orientated when I was younger, a lot of muscle car stuff. Really kind of cool stuff. And then I basically went to Europe to go visit my family. It was around the time when Michael Schumacher was really like working hard and making a lot of energy there. I think they had like some crazy amount of indoor karting tracks. I think it was like one for every 10 miles around from each other. And so it was really cool. And a friend of mine had said, hey, we should go indoor karting. I didn't know much about it, got in it. And it was actually a really funny story because once I got out of the kart, my hands were wrapped around the steering wheel, couldn't get my hands off of it. And I was said to myself, well, I'm never doing that again. And there goes that. Basically, I was addicted. I mean, it's so cool to kind of just do that and just be involved, even in the indoor karting stuff. It was really cool. And then I kind of came back to the U.S., couldn't really find much about it. Went to a swap meet and found a go-kart, an old Emic with a Yamaha KT100. And I said, wow, where do you do this? And basically from there on, he kind of led me in a direction where I can find races and so on and so forth. And I did that. And, basically the rest is history. I did that for about 10 years, was racing pretty aggressively, moved through the ladder, kind of, gravitated to a lot of stuff that was going on in Europe. I love direct drive stuff, did a lot of that with the 125cc direct drive out of the Rio Mar, Brazilian type setup. And then basically once the Leopard came around, basically gravitated towards that since it was kind of what we were doing already. And then kind of did that for another 5 years with TAG, and then started dabbling and trying to figure out how to make the sport, fun on the promotion side for me. I kind of, wanted to be involved in that portion of it. So that's kind of the history about how I kind of ended up where I am today.
Yeah, it's a deep history. I didn't realize that you had been involved in that many years. You talk about being back in the Yamaha with the Emic, and then all of a sudden, we're talking 15-something years behind the wheel. That's very cool. And obviously, interesting to hear you say you gravitated towards certain things. And I think that's funny, right? Because there's a lot of people that just want to go racing, and that Briggs 206 is such an easy jump out of an indoor karting deal. But if you had that kind of European feel background or whatever it may be, sports cars, you may want to get in something a little different, right? You were thinking about the 2-cycle stuff. And it's interesting to hear what you gravitated to, what was personally attractive to you in terms of what you wanted to get into. Now, question though, because listen, there's lots of people who get into an indoor karting facility, fall in love with it, and go racing, or their parents raced or whatever, and they race. It's a very small group, Marco, that number one, jump into the industry from being a racer. Even a smaller group that end up becoming major league promoters. So, where was it in your, or what was the transition? What was the genesis of you saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to promote some races, because that's not something that normally happens?
Well, I think actually what had happened is when I first got from the indoor stuff, bought that cart, like I just kind of went over. Basically what had happened is I went to the racetrack, and I always felt like that there wasn't enough competition at the track. So I felt that I had to take it upon myself to try to get, more people involved so that I could actually race more people. Yep. So I basically, I worked a lot with the people at Raceway Park, which is Englishtown, New Jersey, and the people that promoted races here, which was, the Raceway Park karting championship. And basically I said, what can I do to attribute some help here? And basically for about 7 or 8 years of when I was karting, I would stand, you'll laugh. Some people probably think it's pretty cool. Some people probably think it's pretty crazy to do. But I would basically stand at swap meets for 3 days in a row with my go-kart to try to get people interested in the sport. I've done Boy Scout meetings where parents would look at me like I had 6 heads because I'm trying to take their kid out of a campground and bring them to a racetrack. There's a lot of funny stories. And it's some really good stories. I basically once went to a monster truck show, and outside the monster truck show was Scion, brought an actual whole track, whole setup with 4-cycle Hondas and stuff on it. And all of a sudden I said, could I advertise with you guys? I don't know, you guys charging? He said, no, this is free. So sure enough, I said, all right, let me go and advertise with these guys. This is great. I guess this was like an advertisement for Scion. Well, all of a sudden they said, oh, you want to take the cart for a run? I said, sure. So I went and took the cart for a run. Well, guess what? I end up winning a prize to go to Las Vegas at the SEMA show. Wow. Just from this advertising. So karting has given me so many memorable moments and funny stuff, how you just get a little lucky in some cases. But I got to say that it's been a pleasure to be involved in this sport on so many fronts because, all the friends you make being involved is pretty special. So I'm really happy in how everything has been turning out so far.
Well, I certainly agree with that side of it. But again, very commendable for you, because that's really the work that you did getting into the trenches, essentially taking the sport to people that, maybe pre-qualified because some of them were at swap meets or whatever it may be, or even to a place like you said, like the Boy Scouts, where you're going somewhere where these guys aren't pre-qualified as racing fans. But man, that's the kind of thing that we still need in the sport now. And I know you'd agree that our best bet would be to introduce the sport to people that don't even know about it as of yet. So that was kind of the starting. When did you start the F Series? When was your first program that you actually put together?
Well, you know what? It basically started with in 2006 when the Leopard really turned in to something really big, and the tag program in general. We had basically adopted it, and I used to run with this gentleman, and we still keep in close contact. This young man, Renato Lopes, and basically what he did is he brought in probably about 10 or 15 Brazilian guys to run at our local club race. And I loved it. I thought what these guys were doing was just great. It was a camaraderie of guys. And basically from that direct drive setup, we basically transitioned over to the Leopard. And that was in 2006. So for 4 years, I promoted with this gentleman this particular program. hence the name F125, because it kind of derived from our direct drive program, so on and so forth. And then basically in 2010, we said, we should do an event to kind of remember one of our fallen guys that basically, this is a pretty far off the base story here, but he had kind of been in an accident with work. And we raced with him the week before, and he passed away on the Monday. And so we kind of wanted to memorialize him with a race, and it was called the Mario Race. And from there on, it kind of – and that was a real wake-up call. It's a lot more difficult to run a race than most people would anticipate. You think, it's all fun and games. And that was my first – and I probably should have turned back right then and there. But, then I really got motivated in trying to make something. And so in 2010 was our first real race, but then – it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think we've been legitimately serious since probably 2011. So that's kind of where we started doing 3 events, and then went to 5 events, and then 7. And, now we're up to quite a few with all of our local stuff that we do. And
yeah, no doubt about it. One of the major success stories in the Northeast, and of course in American karting as a whole, the development of this F-Series, this Gear Up F-Series program. Right now on the Industry Insider, episode number 17 here on the EKN Radio Network, speaking with Marco Oldhafer. We will be back, folks. Stay with us, because when we get back from this break, we're going to start talking about 2019. Marco's kind of giving us a little bit of backstory so we can see where we are. But it's time to talk about where the F-Series is positioned for 2019, the plans they've got working. We'll talk about the schedule, and we'll go into maybe some of the new stuff that Marco's ready to roll out here for the upcoming season. Stick with us. More to come on the EKN Radio Network.
This is Chris Wheeler, and you're listening to the EKN Radio Network.
Looking for that extra edge? Comet Racing Engines is your answer. The engine service program from Comet Kart Sales has been winning from coast to coast at all levels and different forms of the sport. Lead engine builders Mark Harrison and Gary Lawson have decades of karting experience, providing racers the power to reach the top step of the podium. Comet Racing Engines continually perform track and dyno tests to provide their customers with the cutting edge in engine performance. Comet specializes in Yamaha KT100, IAME Swift, IAME X30, IAME Leopard, and Rock engines. Trackside and customer support are the cornerstones of the Comet Racing Engines business, ensuring each and every customer receives personal attention and the help they need to achieve the best results. Engine rentals are available at all the events that Comet attends in 2018, including WKA, SCUSA, USPKS, and the Route 66 Sprint Series. Contact the Comet team today at cometkartsales.com or by calling 317-462-3413. If you're looking to step up your engine program, send it to Comet Racing Engines.
Hi, EKN listeners. This is Jeff Wessel from Streeter Superstands. When it comes to lifts and stands for your carts and the largest selection of shop and trailer accessories, we know all about building and giving you the best. The Streeter Superstands crew has over 30 years of experience, are kart racers just like you, and know that the Streeter name stands for durability, affordability, and most of all, quality. We're the original and genuine manufacturer of Bigfoots and stacker stands, and we build them right here in the USA, along with our best-selling Streeter Superlift, upright stands, and an ever-growing roster of shop and trailer accessories to outfit any trailer or garage. While some guys pretend to be number one, we prove it every day, every race. Racers demand the best, and Streeter Superstand builds it. Check us out at streetersuperstands.com. When it comes to the best in lifts, stands, shop and trailer accessories, and all the cool necessities to make your race day easy and organized, it's all at streetersuperstands.com. We innovate, not imitate. Roll with the best right now at streetersuperstands.com.
Hello, karting fans. This is Andy Saisman, and you are locked in to the EKN Radio Network.
Welcome back to the EKN Radio Network. Rob Howden here with you. Episode number 17 of the Industry Insider. Joined today by Marco Oldhafer from Gear Up F-Series, the program that has become kind of the foundation of regional competition. They work with a lot of clubs as well. We'll talk about state championships, but essentially the program that really is Northeast karting to a certain extent. Marco, let's jump into the 2019 program. First of all, let's look at the schedule 5 races. I believe, is it 5 races, and how many, is it 7 overall events, I think, over those 5 weekends? Is that correct?
That's correct.
So April 26, 27, you're heading down to Mooresville, kind of getting things started with your Northeast guys, not so much in the Northeast, but down at Mooresville, at that great track. Late May 24, 25 at E-Town, as you said, Englishtown, New Jersey. July 19, 2021, a 3-race deal up at New York Race Complex. Then weekend number 4, August 16th and 17th at the Pittsburgh International Race Complex. And you cap off the season on September 2021-22 at New Jersey Motorsports Park. That's the 5-race program for this year based on what I was able to do with my research. Give us some input. What's the approach for 2019?
Well, what we've done is we basically took one race off the schedule. Not that we wanted to. We love doing, to me, it's great to spend time at the track and to see everybody each and every weekend. But certainly, the gear up has kind of changed a little bit. And I want to say that it hasn't changed. It just changed a slight bit. And the reason why is because it always gets increasingly more competitive. The longer you do this, the more competitive it becomes. And of course, with competition, it also becomes a little bit more costly. So that what we figured is we continue the same kind of energy, keep the people that we currently have involved, be able to stay involved by taking one round away, and kind of making it 5 weekends instead of 6. So that's one thing. And we've kind of closed up our traveling circle a little bit. In a sense of that we don't go further away than we kind of were last year. But this year, things are looking incredibly good, just from the feedback that we're receiving from the tracks. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to, compare ourselves to anybody else. But, man, we've got a schedule that just is absolutely perfect. It just, starting at GoPro is a fabulous track, and everybody looks forward to being at that racetrack. Another great piece for us is that we are, a very heavily sided for shifter racing. So a lot of the tracks that we go to don't have any other shifter racing. So if you're looking for a good shifter race at these tracks, particularly, this is kind of the event to hit. So I think that's a really good part about it. Of course, New York Race Complex. Obviously, I have a soft spot for the place. I know the guy, and a lot of hard work went in there, and it's perfect for shifter racing. I mean, I'm going to be honest. It's tough to do on a local event scenario because obviously shifter racing is a little bit tough when it comes to local racing. But when big events, and if you're a shifter program, that is the place to hit, primarily just a way of the layout. Pittsburgh, always been a favorite for guys, on tags and shifters as well. And then, of course, nobody can ever say that New Jersey Motorsports Park isn't one of the top tracks in the country as well. Englishtown is a little bit smaller for us. We've kind of named it the Bull Ring. It's definitely a place that creates some pretty fierce competition and great races over the years. So I think our schedule overall is just top notch. And even the spacing gives a little bit of room to do maybe something else as well, which is a good thing.
For those who don't know, Marco actually now the owner of New York Race Complex. And when he said he knows the guy, it means he knows him very, very well. They talk every morning in the mirror. We'll talk more about the New York Race Complex a little later on, because I think that's another commitment, Marco, that you've made to the sport and to racing up in the Northeast. We'll go there. But you mentioned shifter carts and how a lot of the tracks you go to really play well for the shifter carts, and you have a lot of shifter support in your program. Let's segue that and talk about class structure. You've done some things that other organizations haven't done. You've maintained the tag program, so you can run an IAME if you want, an X30. You can run the Rock. You can run a Rotax. That's not something we see everywhere, but you're making it work. Talk a little bit about the class structure that you guys are going to use for this year. I know it's very similar to years past, but just for people that don't know the F-Series, talk a little bit about the class structure that you have in place.
Well, the class structure, that's probably what I spend about 98% of my conversation on during a week or a year. We try to hit as many different manufacturers as possible. But obviously, with that being said, we also try to do it so that, there's fair and equal competition. And the one thing I don't want to do is invite somebody to the race who doesn't have a chance with that particular package.
Yep.
So I make it a very important piece to actually have those engines work well with each other. And you're gonna like this. Last year we had 7 races, and out of those 7 races, we had 3 manufacturers win throughout the year. One being a Rotax, one being an X125,
yep.
and the other one being an X30, just in tag. So that's a really great piece. When it comes to the minis, we basically have one group with a mini rock. I started with the mini rock program when Mini Swift wasn't even around yet.
Yeah.
So that kind of one thing people always have said, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? One thing people have found out about me, that I'm probably one of the loyal guys when it comes to somebody that helps me.
Yep.
So the mini rock guys, Vortex in general, have done a fantastic job trying to help me promote the program. So is everyone else. But, when we were looking for options to change from the Comer, I don't want to say anything bad about any particular product, but man, the mini rock / Vortex, the IAMI stuff versus some of the other products out there, we're really, it's a home run for the community and for the people using the product. So with that being said, so what we try to do is we try to use as many products as we possibly can, but also be able to use them in a fair and equal way. And I noticed you had just said, and I think one of the Facebook questions on the e-karting news post had requested and looked at Rock GP. We do not use Rock GP, believe it or not, in our tag. The reason why we don't use it is because Vortex, Garrett, Potter, myself, Mario, we have worked pretty hard to try to fit that particular engine in. And no matter what we've done, we can't do it. We can't do it the right way.
Yeah.
So guess what? We're not doing it. Why don't we do it? Is because, what's most important in this sport? Not the series, not the manufacturers. The racers are the most important piece of our sport. Without them, this doesn't work. So we have to make sure that we are the forefront of, a fair and unbiased rule package. So if it doesn't fit, then it won't be there. And that's kind of where we've left off on that. I can keep talking, so just cut me off at any point in time that you'd like to.
I would know. It's listen. The stage is yours. You're going through your class structure, and I think this is great stuff. This is what people want to learn about. Not only do they want, we could just say, hey, here's the class structure. Boom, 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 boom. But the idea about this podcast is to give some information behind what's the motivation. Why are you doing what you do? So you continue on. I think that's great. I like the loyalty in the mini rock program is great. It was obviously it was a huge thing right around 2010, 11, and 12. That was it still is a fantastic motor package, and I commend you for having that loyalty. That's solid. Let's move to the tag category. So you ran the Formula 125 class. You run tag as well. Give some insight into that.
Right. Well, a lot of people say, oh, man, how you manage in this 125 program? Well, I'll tell you, I'm not managing anything. It is probably the most passionate people when it comes to being in the sport is our program when it comes to the class, the Formula 125. It has been the backbone of this program 100%. When everything else fails, that's there. Yeah. And you know what? And it's a testament to the engine. I know, listen, every engine has their issues. And, at the end of the day, when you run a race motor for 100,000 miles, it's not going to be super reliable at the end of that. So, when I first used the Leopard, it was a fantastic motor, and it was super reliable. So I saw the beginning of the Leopard, and it was great. And just like it is with the rest of these engines. So we've kind of held on to that, and people like it. Right now, you can go pretty easily on any kind of, on your marketplace, on EK,
forums.
On your forums, and you can purchase a Leopard pretty reasonably and get into the sport and follow a fun program around.
Agreed.
That's great. If we can do that, and in this program, you have the options. You want to come from Washington State and run an X125 or anywhere in between. You want to run a Rotax because you're hooked up with J3. That's great too. Come on down. I think what's most important is that we do put a program together where everything is fair, and everybody can run together. It's kind of funny when you have multi-engine programs, customers or racers rather will say, oh, this engine's faster than mine. And you know what? We're more than welcome to listen. Bring us forward your data. That's the first thing I say. I can't make changes on opinions. I can make changes on data. If you bring me data, there was a very, very big push forward from the Rotax guys this year in our region. Great job by those guys. And all of a sudden, we saw them running neck to neck with the X30s and with the X125 guys. And you're going to love it because somebody comes up and says, how come the Rotax is so quick this weekend? And I'm going to say, well, they've been doing their homework. They've been at it. And sure enough, I went and got the data sheet and I showed them the information. And the X30 actually ran a tenth faster, but the Rotax won. So, at the end of the day, it's about consistency versus all-out speed, right? And that was a pretty key piece for me because I'd like to make sure that we are on point with these, and we'll make changes if they have to be there. If we feel like that somebody is running away with something, we'll make that change because that shouldn't happen for anyone.
And that's always been what the challenge of running a tag program from when that package first came out, that concept of having different engines coming in. It's always been that issue because certain engines get a little bit change here, a little change there. And all of a sudden we see an inequality. And for you guys to be, very forward on it and very forward thinking on it, I think is tremendous. Now, we talk about that. What about looking forward to your shifter cart program? Because again, you said it before, really is one of the core components of what the Gear Up F Series is it not? Is that great stock Honda program. You've got KZ as well. You've got the Rock Shifter now. Talk a little bit about how your shifter cart, your gearbox program is going to work for 2019.
Well, in the past, we've actually had 3 different programs. 2 of them ran together. The Rock and the Honda ran together, and then the KZ ran separately. And one thing that we saw that we had a different the community in shifters were basically from 15 years of age, 160 pounds, to 60 years old and 220 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty broad spectrum of drivers that we've had, and which is a great thing. I think that this is super important to have that. I think it's great that we're able to do that. I remember Eric Jones saying something to me, we don't see a community like yours anywhere. And that's a testament to our approach, I think. But, not to boast too much about how we get it done or what we do and who we have working with us. But I think it's a great thing. But that also makes us have to look at our class structure very intensely here. So I think the most important piece about this is that in the past we've had 3 shifter programs, one with Rock, one with Honda, and then one with the KZ. But they were all geared towards the same scenario, right? They were all geared towards 15 years of age and 170 pounds.
Yep.
And so basically what we've seen over the past couple of years is some of the guys who may just be enjoying the events for other reasons than just to all out win all the time, maybe getting a little bit, discouraged or not having such a great time because it's just geared just for that one type of person. So now what we've done over this year is we've created a little bit more of a program where there's a super serious group, which is going to be our KZ scenario. Then we have a kind of a middle of the road scenario with Formula Shifter, where all 3 genres are basically put into one program. And then we do have an age-orientated group at 43 years old with a slightly heavy weight. But, depending on the numbers, they'll run together or they'll run separate. But KZ will always run separate this season. So we have a pretty aggressive group on shifters. I've got people coming from all over the place. I've got some people anticipating to come from Europe on this stuff. So we're getting a lot of energy on the KZ because I think it is a special class. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, so there's the next question, the obvious question, Marco, is what is the fascination with KZ for you? And I'm not saying like it shouldn't be a fascination because we all love it, the Supernats when the KZ guy comes out, and I remember watching the Formula C World Championships and whatever it may be. The KZ stuff is massive. We had the ICC here for a while. It kind of took over from the built motos. We went ICC. Everybody said it was going to be out of the box. It was going to be cheaper. At the national level, the crazy national level, people started getting really crazy with them. It got expensive, hence paving the way for stock Honda to come in, which then, of course, has raised its prices up. For you, what is it? Why are you the guy? Why is F-Series the program that really has been the bastion of KZ racing? You guys are the supporters of that program, not just one weekend, but from January 1st to December 31st, you guys are there for KZ.
Well, I think, and sometimes I may not sound correct the way I say things. Sometimes people take me the wrong way. But believe it or not, before I started promoting, I actually thought that shifter racing was somewhat difficult, especially when it comes to a local level. It's a little bit too much. It's like buying a full-blown race car on an amateur level. It's just very, very hard. But then basically what changed my mind is, of course, the group that had created the Northeast Shifter Kart Series, Michael Rivera and this young man, Bernard Muminovic, that basically put a lot of effort towards this particular genre. Mike raced it a lot. Bernard promoted it a lot. So at the end of the day, these guys kind of started that. And then, so what basically we kind of came together because we were in the same region, and it was just a really good fit. So basically they had come in and we worked together for about 3 to 4 years before Mike had said, you know what, I think, it'd be better for the community to have one home instead of having two homes. And that's how this kind of thing got gelled together. As we know, more people working together to go in the right direction, in the same direction, is going to be a good thing for the sport. So that's kind of how this worked out. And ever since then, believe it or not, because watching the races, kind of having my son involved in the shifter racing, it's the coolest thing ever. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I can't, I'm not going to deny it. I'm a fan. And it's just super cool. I mean, the starts that we have, the standing start lights that, display it just like Formula One. It's exactly what we all aspire to. So what I'm thinking is, about the KZ, I think that goes back to where I'm from. The Europeans basically, have taken karting and professional, made it super professional. And if I look at, for instance, I use DKM as a lot of my, as something that I would look up to and see what's going on. I mean, in reality, they have OK Junior, OK Senior, KZ1, KZ2. They have 200 entries. What are we doing wrong? I don't know exactly why that works there and it doesn't work here. But all I can do is try to emulate it, try to put that kind of an energy behind it. I am kind of torn a little bit about how I promote. A lot of people say, you should really take this thing and make it even more crazy and make it more professional and get this and get that. Man, but I really like to have all the local guys. I like to invite everybody to the party. And when you do that, when you create that ultra professional scenario, I think you kind of cut a lot of the people out that I really enjoy their time at the track with me. So,
well, Marco, what you've done a lot with your class structure, and you can hear the theme as we talk about it, is you're removing those barriers of entry. You're making it easier for people to come out and race with you, whatever it may be, whether they're on a different engine package, whatever. You're being inclusive, not exclusive. And you're right. If you were to raise your game to the next level, you're going to cut out a bunch of guys that simply can't afford go that racing, or maybe they wouldn't feel comfortable in that kind of a scenario as well, right? Like Eric Jones said, you guys have this community that you guys have built where people are fiercely protective of what you guys do, and they're big fans and big supporters of what you do. And I think that speaks volumes to the program you're developing. And again, like you said, you could definitely take it to the next level, but you may lose some of that core culture that you've been able to develop over the last 9 years.
Well, I think to kind of come to a middle ground is where what's important is to kind of have it where – I want to say I have my cake and eat it too, but kind of. I mean, basically what I'd like to see is I'd like to have this really special feeling that we have and yet at the end of the day have like a really, professional race. I don't know if those two can coexist, but we're willing to give it a try, and we're going to continue exactly which the way we've been doing. I mean, some people, of course, will say, "Oh, you need to take that next step," but I don't think some people understand that when you take that next step, that it's not as special in some way.
You're going to change what you are. That's for sure. If you take that next step, you're going to alter what the Gear Up F Series actually is right now. It'll be different. Will it be better? It could be, but it's going to be different for sure. It's as simple as that.
Right.
All right. Question for you. Anything new for 2019? I'll give you a chance to talk about what you have new on the plate. And while you're done there, talk a bit about your sponsors too, your partners. I know that you have a really solid group of partners within the industry and outside the industry that really support what you guys do.
Yeah, I take very big pride in the people that support, as loyal as I am. When I understand that people are as loyal to me, I'm there all the way, and I'll fight to the end for that. So it's very important, and that goes from the people that work at the program, from a corner official to our tech person to our registration to our biggest sponsor. At the end of the day, every one of them is pushing for us to get, to make a better community. So with that being said, I mean, we've had, for instance, like, if I could start naming names, start plugging a little bit. I have Contemporary Motor Cars. This was a gentleman that basically believed in us when it was me asking on a fence, basically going, "Hey, I think we're going to start a series. You want to be involved?" And he's like, "Whatever you need." So that was really cool. And the cool part about it is it's not that person's there for 2 weeks or 2 years. Basically, that person's with us for 10 years. Now that's a really cool piece. And it goes to Sherwin-Williams. We have Orgain, which is a young man that actually he's within our program. Pete Miletto, he basically put so much effort into trying to make this this program better. I mean, you have Phil Pignataro. This is kind of a plug for him, and he tried to call us out for us to mention him, right? But man, he does some fantastic photos that he draws for our champions at the end of the year. It's super special to be able to get a hand-drawn photo of yourself, as a champion. So some of those things are super special. And, I commend each and every one of them. You talk about Checkered Motorsports. Every time at my driver's meeting, you can't imagine how honored I am that, Italian Motors drives from, Washington State to do some of our racing.
Yeah, no doubt.
So all of those things, now we're seeing a lot of Canadian competition come to us. I know the Canadians are a little bit, tough to deal with, but
easy now.
Just messing with you, So no, but it's great fun. I mean, and obviously, I'm going to have a very soft spot for Canada. Me being literally a mile away from the Canadian border there with our track and stuff. So I mean, there's so many great things. I mean, I can't thank each and every one of our kart shops and the people that really, push the program, all of the sponsors, like I said, Vortex, IAMI, Rotax. I think it's actually, I boast and I talk pretty heavily about this to people that, we actually have Rotax, IAMI, and Vortex as a sponsor to the program. Now, I don't know if that could even exist in the real world. It's probably in the same category as world peace, but
it's up there.
We've done it.
It's up there.
Yeah, so we've done it, and it's great to actually have that. And it's great to see everybody, playing in the same sandbox as well as, they play in their own. So.
Well, you've definitely put together a fantastic program. That's there's no doubt about that. It's the Gear Up F Series, folks, and Marco Oldhafer and joining us here on the Industry Insider, episode number 17 on the EKN Radio Network. Thrilled that you're tuning in either on the radio network for the initial playings, or maybe you've downloaded the podcast a little later on. We usually get the podcast out about a week after the show debuts on the EKN Radio Network. Stick with us. When we get back, Marco's going to talk a little bit about the state championships that they're putting together as well. We're going to talk about his track, the New York Race Complex, and we'll take some questions that we got from Facebook as well. Stay tuned. More to come on the EKN Radio Network.
Hello, karting fans. This is IndyCar driver Zach Veach, and you're locked into the EKN Radio Network.
If the dream is IndyCar, set your target on the Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires. Our ladder system is designed to take drivers through 3 rungs of competition. The first step is the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship, which features a carbon tub Tatis chassis, 180 horsepower, and paddle shift sequential gearbox. Boost the USF 2000's output to 280 horsepower for the newly named Indy Pro 2000 program, the second rung of the Road to Indy, formerly known as Pro Mazda. Add in increased grip and aero downforce, and the Tatis PM18 becomes an incredible racing machine. The final step before IndyCar is the Indy Lights Championship presented by Cooper Tires. The Dallara IL-15 boasts a whopping 450 horsepower. This car itself has helped train a third of the grid expected for the 2019 IndyCar Series. At all 3 levels, you race at premier venues on the same dance card as IndyCar. Showcase your skills under the watchful eyes of IndyCar scouts and owners. The program is unprecedented around the world, offering the opportunity to climb the ladder with over $2 million in scholarships to the champions in USF 2000, Indy Pro 2000, and Indy Lights. Former carters fill the roster of Road to Indy graduates in IndyCar like Spencer Piggott, Zach Veach, Jack Harvey, Ed Jones, Matthias Laced, Felix Rosenquist, Colton Herta, and 2018 Indy Lights champion Pato O'Ward. Recent graduates like Kyle Kirkwood are in the middle of their journeys right now as well. Follow in their footsteps. If you want to race IndyCar, there's only one choice: the Road to Indy, presented by Cooper Tires. Cometic Gasket is a leading worldwide supplier of gaskets and engine sealing solutions for karting, automotive performance, power sports, original equipment, and the remanufactured engine industries. Cometic karting gaskets are available as OE replacement top-end kits or as individual gaskets and seals. Just like competitive karters, Cometic can operate on the fly and has the unique capability to customize any gasket to meet specific engine requirements and clearances. All of Cometic's fiber materials are asbestos-free and do not require any additional sealants. Viton oil ring cylinder head seals are used in each 2-cycle kit, and Cometic's 4-cycle engine kits feature only the most advanced multi-layer steel head gaskets. Cometic can tailor to engine builder specific needs through bulk ordering and packaging flexibility. Cometic gaskets are must-haves for championship-winning teams across multiple disciplines of both professional and amateur motorsports. Cometic Gasket, sealing championships since 1989.
This is Jim McKinney, and you're listening to EKN Radio Network 24/7.
Welcome back to episode number 17 of the Industry Insider. My name is Rob Howden, joined today by the Gear Up F-Series promoter Marco Oldhafer. And we just kind of went through the 2019 season, what's happening, kind of the thought process behind the way the class structure gets designed, and the way they take a lot of input from their racers and develop the way the program evolves throughout the years. Marco, let's talk about, before we came on here, we talked briefly about it, but let's talk about the state championships as well. You've developed this program that's for the whole Northeast. We talked about the fact it's, 4 different states, but you've also got your hand involved in some state championships as well, that the concept is to bring clubs together to work together.
Yeah, I think one of the most important pieces of what I'm seeing throughout the sport lately is that, I think the local level stuff, the individual tracks are being somewhat forgotten. I don't know, I know that it's a difficult job each and every weekend to stand at a track and basically have, 10, 15 people come to your track. But unfortunately, it's something that needs to happen. Now, we've been fairly fortunate because I guess we had the Gear Up Challenge as a springboard. So the state championship's been very successful. I have a huge, group of people that helped to make that a success. But it's something that I truly believe needs to be stronger. Our foundation is not strong enough in the sport. And I only noticed that. I notice it more now ever since the racetrack, New York. But I also notice it because I do a lot with Englishtown Raceway Park, New Jersey Motorsports Park, Pittsburgh. I don't do a lot with them, but I know the lay of the land in these places, and I see that the day-to-day operations do not include a lot of competition karting, and that worries me. And it's actually a bad thing for the sport. So I think that's kind of why that needed to go in that direction. And I love it. It's great. It's a little bit more of a relaxed atmosphere. It kind of reminds me of, 11 start day of Gear Up, where it was kind of like me and my 30 best friends kind of coming to the racetrack. Now it's kind of like, oh, who's that guy at the track? But it's kind of like a little bit more like that, where it's a little bit more personal, and it's a little bit more of a relaxed scenario. But don't let me discard that the competition is absolutely fierce there as well. So it's actually really good. It's a good place for us to kind of promote the sport.
Well, give me some more input. Let's start with there's the New York Karting Championship. What else do you have? Let's give maybe some more specifics for the EKN listeners so they know exactly what state championships we're talking about.
Okay, so the state championship actually started with the New Jersey portion. So basically, it's 2 tracks. New Jersey Motorsports Park in Englishtown. We do 5. This year we're doing 5 at each track. At New Jersey Motorsports Park, we have 2 different configurations, the big track Tempest, which we're on, and then we're also on the Liberator, which is a really nice technical half circuit of the Tempest. And then, of course, Englishtown is definitely a place that creates great racing, especially when it comes to the more state orientated stuff. Now, the New York Karting Championship, that is something a little bit different. The state championship in New Jersey is kind of promoted by the F-Series, straightforward. But then the New York Karting Championship's a whole nother animal that we've kind of worked on. And it was actually the owner of Lafayette Motorsports Park, Tony, he had basically contacted me and said, hey, why don't we do something very similar to what you have with the state championship? And I said, okay, so how do we do this? I said, I can't do it all. And I said, I don't know if you want to do it all. So we kind of came up with a format that basically made all the track owners that are involved somewhat responsible for a piece of it. And essentially that means, so New York Race Complex has 2 races. That means I'm responsible for those 2 races. And, whatever comes in the door is for me. And there we go. And then whatever comes into the door at Lafayette Motorsports Park, that goes there. And that's a really good thing. And then an actual very much stable for New York karting is Avon, Genesee Valley Kart Club. And those guys are also hosting 2 of the races. So it's really good to see 3 tracks working together. And out of those 3 tracks, they're very much in northern New York, around the Great Lakes area, Lake Ontario. So that's a really great thing. And it's working well. Last year was kind of a test bed for us. This year we're kind of expanding it a little bit. Last year we had 3 races. Now we're doing 6, 2 at each track. But it seems like it's already gaining a lot of steam. And so I think it's going to be a great thing to and I think the most important piece about all is that there's continuity from the New York to Maryland, to New Jersey, to Pennsylvania. This would be the ideal thing, and that everybody can go everywhere, and they're not kind of dictated to go to one thing or the other.
You know what? For me, I just like the fact that I'm hearing people work together. That's the thing we need in this sport, no doubt about it. Now, you mentioned the New York Race Complex, and let's talk about that a little bit. I had said that it's interesting that you're a guy that came out of indoor karting. You get into karting, and you're outdoor racing, and you're doing the 125 stuff. You become a promoter, which of course sets you into a small group. Then you become a promoter that actually buys a racetrack. What was the storyline? What's the timeline for you picking up the track that was formerly known as St. Lawrence Motorsports Park? How do you end up buying a racetrack?
Well, I have to kind of thank my buddy Tony Lishak for that. That's Competitive Kart Sports, if I can plug another guy here, right?
Please.
So the thing is
a great guy.
that, Tony has been, he's always been a huge promoter and a huge backer of what we've been doing, never let loose, not one day, right? And so the thing is, he's always looking out for us to kind of figure out what we can do next and where to go and how to get it done. And he said, man, you should really look at this racetrack. It's about 2 hours north of where I live. It's a fantastic track. It'd probably be my favorite track if it had everything done to it and so on and so forth. And I said, all right. So, and 2-3 years goes by because I said, we're not big enough to kind of go that far away. And, we were working very much in New Jersey and Oakland Valley Race Park and so on and so forth. So, and then basically one day, a good friend of ours, I'm sure, Josh Lane and Christian Bauhaus, basically invited us up to the track to kind of just spend a weekend up there and just do some shifter kart racing with my son and so on and so forth. So I went up there and something else, I will be honest, it's a very special area. It's at the Thousand Island area of New York. If I can be honest with you, I've went to California and I thought it was the prettiest place in the country. But then I went up here and man, it's a close run for these two places. It's just it's a great area just in general. A lot of Amish, very rural. You feel like you're in in a very tranquil place. So with that being said, there's actually a funny story, and I don't want to curse on your podcast here, but so basically we come down the hill of this particular of the track. When you drive in, you drive on a 50, 60 foot hill. And basically, when you drive in, every single person stops, and you will do it, including you. I guarantee it. You will stop, and you will go, holy,
beep.
Yes, beep. So, and so all of a sudden, I said, wow, this is something else. This is a really special place. So we kind of worked, and I was trying to work with a promoter that was trying to do something up there, not the owner of the facility. Well, we tried to put a race on and so on and so forth. That's a long story. I won't get into that, but that kind of didn't work out as we had planned, just because financial things don't work out sometimes the way you'd like them to. But then basically, as soon as that kind of fell through, I said, Tony, who owns the place? He said, this guy Joe, so on and so forth. So I said, why don't I talk to Joe and see if we can get a race to go on up there? Well, me and Joe started talking. He felt my passion about the track, and he goes, listen, if I want to sell this thing, I want to sell it to somebody like that's as passionate as you about all this. Yeah. So basically, we came to an agreement, and we bit the bullet. And that's literally what I did. I bit the bullet. So from there on, I think I've even sent you some funny pictures about painting curbs in the middle of the night and stuff. So there's
well, I was gonna go there because before we go there, first off, a lot of people don't know about this racetrack. When it first got built, I know that I was getting contacted. Hey, we're building this racetrack. Yeah, it's a little bit north in New York, but we're going all in. Like, it's a full CIKFIA track. It's over kilometers, about 1.2 kilometers long. I know it's like 35 feet wide. Like, this place was done correctly. It just wasn't in the wheelhouse of where everybody would have wanted to have races. So this is this tremendous track. What you've developed in the Northeast now makes this track super viable because you're building this program. But we'll go back. You and I were on the phone the one night. I think we were going back and forth to try to talk about some information. And I think when you called me, or when we were talking, you were painting the curbs, but there was no power or something like that. So you were painting the curbs like with the lights off your car
with a generator. And it was actually kind of scary. I was looking around. It was a 30-foot bubble that I was working in. But we were so close to that inaugural race, and so we really needed to hustle down and get it taken care of. So yeah, it was super important for us to do that, but that's kind of how that, and I found myself, the lights go out pretty quickly up there, and after about 10 o'clock in the summer. And so we really worked hard to try to put, the track into a place where when people come, they feel like that they've arrived. And that's kind of why it's taken us a little bit longer, I think, than, everybody said, oh, well, you bought it. Okay, well, let's promote stuff. And that doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, I'm not going to invite you to my house unless there's windows in my house and you got a toilet to go to. So, and that's kind of how we did this. And you're going to laugh, but about 2 months ago, before the end of the season, is when I actually felt really comfortable about letting people kind of come and say, hey, now we're really there. You're driving in on a real road. And, so there's a lot there. It's all done with our own thing. I actually made a few notes about what the improvements we have done over the time that we've owned it. Now, we've only owned it, this is probably going on to right now about 2 years. But since, we paved in August of last season, but since then we put 4,000 feet of asphalt into the track. We hand poured 1,000 feet of curbs. Right? Last year we put 60 gallons of paint on the track, 400 feet of gallons of sealer onto any unpaved surfaces, 800 feet of fencing. And this year is a small project of 300 feet of curb that we're going to finish the rest of the track with. So, just
incredible.
This is on top of all the other stuff that we have going on. So, I don't know what I was thinking about when I went to that indoor karting track, but
right.
Again, but it's really been gratifying. It's really worth it. It's to put another place into the Northeast that people can go to. And I think the really great part about the track is that I'm actually super excited about is that I feel that it's somewhat of a bridge to our northern brothers, right? At the end of the day, because there is some fierce racing that goes on in Canada. And for us to be able to create a place where, there's somewhere in the middle of the road. At the end of the day, somebody from, say, from ICAR or Mont Tremblant to go to New Jersey is a pretty big haul. But for them to go to a New York race complex is actually a pretty nice, middle ground. So I think
and I like that because that cross border Ontario New York kind of thing was big in the 80s and 90s. Mark, it was a big deal, right? The guys would race at Batavia, at Avon, as you said. They'd go run Oakland Valley, whatever it may be. So you're obviously offering up something that's pretty amazing in terms of having some of that cross border competition that used to happen in the old days. A lot of Formula A guys going back and forth between Ontario, Quebec, and New York. Now, you've kind of laid out some of the stuff you've done to the track. And again, this is the New York Race Complex we're talking about, folks. What's the day-to-day? Do you guys have a rental fleet there? Is there kind of a for-hire program, or is it totally just competition at this point?
Well, you live fairly close to the track, right? Within like 3 hours or so. In Canadian terms, that's like 20 minutes, right?
I'm probably 6 hours, 5 or 6. I'm near Toronto.
So that's 40 minutes then.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, something like that. Maybe.
Right. So the thing is, but obviously that it's very, very inclement weather. Probably from about November to about April, but from about late April until about middle of October to the end of October, we're going to be open quite a lot. We're going to have, a pretty aggressive schedule. Last year I tried to do something where we had basically like a club series, but that didn't really work out too well. I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit. I was under the impression I was going to be dealing with something that I was dealing with in New Jersey, where we have an established community, which we didn't. The track's been, I don't want to say been totally dormant because it's been open, but it's just not been promoted heavily. So what we're doing now is we're doing more special events. We're going to be focusing on trying to get the local community involved, offer up some fun stuff to do. We do have some rentals that we're going to be offering. We have 10 rental carts up there, which, luckily Pitt's International Race Complex basically sold their carts. So we were lucky enough to be able to get some of those. And this will be a great start for us because it's a way for hopefully to get another Marco that gets into a rental cart and never lets go.
That's it.
I'm hoping that will make that happen. And then, like I said, we're going to have some special events. We have the Gear Up again up there. We have the New York Karting Championship for 2 races. So we'll probably have about 5 or 6 really competitive, fun races up there. And then the rest of it's just going to be basically knuckles down and trying to get people involved and show them how good this sport is and how fun it is. And, not to boast about the track too much, but man, the guys who did the paving on the track, I don't know what they were doing, but the surface is absolutely flawless. It's a mile without a bump in it.
Wow.
And there's no undulations, and it's a speedway fast kart track. It's really cool. And, I hope that everyone will take a trip, not just for the track. It is a beautiful area. The Thousand Islands is something special in between Canada and New York. So I would encourage anybody to take a visit and spend some time. There's great cottages, great fishing, things like that, as well as racing.
Well, anytime we can have a brand new track or a new track, refurbished track with the kind of passion that you have behind it, that's a key thing. And I would say to everybody listening here, that's the kind of facility you want to at least head up to one time, support what Marco's doing up there, because that's obviously extremely big. Now, we're going to cut to another quick commercial. We come back. I've got those questions from Facebook. I'm going to get Marco to give me some of his thoughts on the sport. He's obviously in tune with the Northeast, but more than that, the industry as well. And we'll talk about the future of the F-Series, what he's got planned for the next couple of years. Stick with us. More to come here on the EKN Radio Network.
Hello, karting fans. This is Gabby Chavez, and you're locked into the EKN Radio Network.
If you want to drive the best, drive a CRG. Our countless race wins and championships prove this fact, including taking the KZ Finals at the SCUSA Super Nationals and the CIK World Championships in both 2016 and 2017. Our material is second to none. After years of independent American importers, CRG is now managed directly by the factory and run out of our state-of-the-art headquarters in Texas. CRG Nordam is the American arm of the CRG factory in Italy, and we're serious about success. We stock a wide variety of parts in all of our chassis, from the CRG Hero for the mini categories, to the Heron for tag race, the Road Rebel for gearbox competition, and the new FS4, which has been designed specifically for American four-cycle Briggs racing. If you're ready to step up to the national level, do it with a factory race team that competes across the USA. CRG Nordam is a full factory effort with the best personnel and the finest equipment. We're serious about winning, and you should be too.
Joining the Rawlson Performance Group is the obvious choice to take your racing to the next level. Industry-leading driver development is provided by our staff of multi-time national champions, Super Nationals winners, and former Team USA members. And at the same time, RPG continues to be a national-level powerhouse race team. Our goal is to help you raise your game and win races. Rawlson Performance Group is setting a new standard with our in-house engine program, AVP Engines, headed by Alex Vincent. AVP has become the benchmark in the IAME X30 categories. We have the largest trackside OTK inventory, providing parts to racers and teams at all the major events in North America. RPG can also offer multilingual support, as we have French and Portuguese-speaking staff. If you want to fight for championships or want to improve your skills and your chances to win, the answer is to call RPG at 503-260-4514. The Rawlson Performance Group. We race to win.
This is Brian Jarscrack, and you're listening to the EKN Radio Network.
Welcome back to the EKN Radio Network, Tuesday, February the 5th, 2019. Rob Howden and Marco Oldhafer as we talk about the Gear Up F-Series. We've gone through the 2019 season. We talked about the state championships, Marco's track, the New York Race Complex. Marco, we got a couple of questions from Facebook. I know a couple of guys threw some stuff out here. We had good comments from the guys at Checkered Motorsports, big supporters from yours. Emily McFowle-Coon had a couple of questions. Number one, she was asking about the Rock VLR 100cc program for juniors. Is that something you've looked at? Because you can see in a number of programs that 100cc, whether it's the Rock or the IAME K100, people are kind of jumping at that. Is that something you're looking at?
I think it's a great platform. You'll laugh at this one as well. About 10 years ago, a kart shop that I was dealing with pretty aggressively, he said, man, this tag 125 is so fast. Man, it's so fast. They almost need 100cc. Yep. And then this is 10 years later, we're talking or we're promoting it, right? So there is a great place for it. I think it's a great thing to have. The only thing that worries me is that we don't have enough racers. We have, 100 racers and we have 10 classes. That means there's 10 people in each class. To continuously keep splitting the pie, continuously keep confusing people on what to do next is a little difficult for me. Now, I will say I don't understand really why, and this is something that I've been known to do and I don't really want to do too much of it anymore. But I don't really know why this program is being promoted always at the high level. Why are things not introduced at the bottom level? Why are they? Well, I don't want to say bottom. This is a bad way to kind of say these things, but why is it not promoted on a local level? Get some structure, get a foundation, and then basically use it as you go up and use it for the big stuff. It's not done like that. It's always promoted at the top level, and then it either fails or doesn't.
Well, they're hoping for trickle down as opposed to trickle up, right? David Cole and I, Marco, have talked about this in a number of podcasts where we really believe that the 100cc program would be better served at the club and regional level, not so much at the top national pro level stuff. We understand having it the Super Nats, kind of that big Olympics of 100cc racing, but man, we agree with you. You want the pyramid, right? You want the pool to be big, the foundation of the pyramid to be strong and wide, and then have people work their way up to the ranks. It's a different deal. It's all about supply and demand at this point. There's a lot of competition in the sport, and that's really, to a certain extent, playing more of a more of a role of how new products do get unveiled and rolled out.
Yeah, so I think, on a state level, I think it'd be a great thing. When it comes to gear up, we're really, really focused on our tag, junior tag, senior tag. I think this is where, I'm kind of torn between promoting a fun, great time program and that ultra professional type scenario. Because our class structure certainly reflects an ultra professional program, right? Where it's mini 60 tag shifter, right? Yep. That kind of goes along that program of DKM, WSK kind of thing, where it's all just OK junior, OK senior, and then KZ1, KZ2 type scenario. So, I would think that the KA is better served on a local level at club races, at fun programs. And then, if it takes off big enough and there's a real push for it, then adding it that way. But I don't know if adding it on the bigger level first and then putting it – I've never agreed with that. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. I don't know if that's right to say or wrong to say, but that's –
Hey, listen, your opinion's your opinion. There's nothing right or wrong about it, right? You're allowed to have it, and I appreciate that. Now, Emily had another question as well, obviously a little tongue-in-cheek. She said, are you ordering less rain for the 2019 season?
Well, listen, I've actually, this became a running joke, right? So the F Series is called the Flood Series. That was one piece of the equation, but I will say that if any of our drivers make it to IndyCar, well, IndyCar wouldn't work that way, but say, for instance, Formula One, and there's a rain race, now I can say we got this in the bag. It would be only benefit for all of this. But at the end of the day, we're trying really not to have as much. It really put a damper on our program. We had some really, really fun things planned. And, the podium and downpours is not really all that fun. So all of those things, we had so many more visual things that we had planned for this year. We had a lot of great things, but I think that this coming season, we've had fairly good luck throughout the year. So one bad one, I guess, is something you got to take in stride. And I think that this year is going to be great. I mean, from looking from the tracks, chin up all the way. I mean, I think we're doing really good, and hopefully we'll have a few less.
Here's a little more direct, and it's always an interesting thing, because you and I have talked about the differences and people not understanding what it's like to actually run a racing series. Carmen Zabo's asking, do you plan on having proper corner workers flag staff to ensure clear and fair racing? From where I watch these races, people, they think a corner worker is going to be able to pick up anything that happens on the racetrack. Are you guys doing more to maybe raise the level of your marshalling program with the series?
Yeah, I did see the question, and I know the family well. We have a great time at the races and so on and so forth. But from a perspective of running a race, it's one thing to be, when I take the brunt of something, I've committed myself to kind of doing this. But man, it's tough to swallow when somebody's not happy with the way that something is working, especially because the track workers, the tech, the grid. I mean, we have probably some of the most dedicated people when it comes to doing this, and they put their heart all in. I mean, there is no shortage of dedication and trying at best to do this. But I'll tell you, I mean, from anybody that would pose a question of this, just put yourself in the shoes of standing outside for 12 hours. And then guess what? In the rain for most of our season.
Right.
To be able to, to try to make it any better is tough. And I will say every single series has this issue, as we can see. I've listened to some of your other podcasts. I mean, as obviously some of your series out there have huge surveillance systems and unending amounts of staff and all these things, and they make the program super expensive.
It is. Yeah.
Am I saying by that I won't continue to try to make our team better? Hell no. We're working as hard as we possibly can. We talk about how do we make it better? How do we work on it? How do we improve our rule book? It just keeps coming. So at the end of the day, of course, this is a no-brainer and 100% that we're going to try to keep improving. But, I do watch big racing as well, NASCAR and Formula One and things like that, and those guys can't get it right. So this doesn't make me feel very warm and fuzzy when I'm talking about trying to get it perfect. How do they not do it when they have a helicopter? I can't even get a plane ride. And these guys can't do it right. So I don't know. I don't want to say that we're not going to continuously strive for being better and continuously making a better program, but it is a very tricky thing. Try to watch a race. I'll be the first one to say that I've watched 10 people go in a corner or 25 people go in a corner and 3 people not leave the corner, and I know what happened. And I'll be the first one to say that it's so hard to make this, to do this right. I don't know. We're certainly trying our hardest, but as you can feel my frustration from this particular question, I don't know how to fix issues that almost are impossible to fix in some way.
That's the line right there. And this is something that I try to get across to so many people we're talking about people. It's the people equation, right? It's the person, the corner worker. They're going to miss stuff. They're not going to be in the exact right angle. And perception is one thing. A parent's going to say that guy took my kid out. Maybe the kid brake checked the guy and didn't tell him. It's perception is such a tough thing. And we have that people equation. There's mistakes are going to be made. Perception's going to be different. I want any racer's family to understand that it's not perfect. Even the video marshaling system, the expensive video marshaling systems aren't perfect. They're fantastic. But like you say, they add a huge amount of cost to the bottom line, staffing, just purchasing it. You get it completely. That it ain't easy. But what you can do is have passionate people in those positions and continually getting them to more experience, getting better at what they do. And the more consistency, Marco, you have in your people in those positions, they're going to get just better and better with more experience. That's the bottom line, to be truthful.
Yeah, I think the other key piece is that I might sound like I'm good at giving excuses already because I've done it so many times and so often. But, the other problems that I see in our sport, when I first started doing this, we have 7, 8, 9 races a year. I mean, how about you be a dentist for 7 or 8, 9 days a year? How good would you be at pulling a tooth after 10 days? We don't have this that we do it every day and we become really good at our jobs. When, what happens, say, one weekend may not happen for another 20 weekends. So that's a span of 2 years, for instance. So it's such a tricky piece to the sport that actually, and it makes our job very difficult. It makes us all, and I'll put us all in one pot. It makes us all seem very unprofessional, but it's not by choice. It's by something that it's just, we don't do enough.
Agreed. Looking through our other questions that we got on our EKN post on Facebook, people asking about the 100cc question. You've already essentially talked about that. You talked about the Rock GP and why you don't have it in the tag categories. I think we did pretty good here, Marco. You've knocked it out. Now, Garrett Potter did ask him if you plan to do any curbs or painting on his track this year. He didn't put a smiley face in there, but I'm going to say it's probably part of it.
Yeah, everybody's very, very funny, right? Why don't you come out and help me, Garrett? Because,
there it is.
We're going to do another 300 feet. So, and that will literally finish the entire racetrack. You're going to love it. We did 4 curbs last year. That's it, 4. But they were a total of 600 feet. Wow. Right, each one of them was I think the smallest was 125, and the longest was 190 feet. Wow. So and it added a very cool factor to the track where now there is really, some substance there, and you don't have dirt coming onto the track and stuff. So we are doing more stuff to the track, and it certainly is getting better. I actually wrote some of the questions down too, and I noticed one of the questions was that people would like to see some different tires. And I don't think that's necessarily across the board. I think people are pretty happy. I'm going to be honest, we used a certain brand for a long time, and now we're using, of course, the LeConte tire for the last couple of years. But man, one thing that I'm going to add to this when somebody would ask me about different tires and so forth, we've seen one thing that's been very good, and this may not reflect Gear Up, but it's reflected the state championships, where that particular tire has actually kind of made competing on a weekly basis at our state championships a little bit simpler. Why do I say that? Is because the tires are incredibly good wearing, and they're a little bit durable compared to some of the other tires that may be being utilized throughout the program. So, and that is a big part of why we would make our decision on a particular tire. So, I want to make sure I address all the questions that were out there. So
I appreciate that. That's good. That's really good. Now, okay, so a couple of things you've said here, and knowing where you come from, the different parts of the sport you're involved in. You were a racer, you're a promoter, now you're a track owner. You've done a lot of stuff in the sport. Overall, if I were to ask you, what are your thoughts on the sport right now? What do you think about the health of karting, particularly in the Northeast? I'd like to get your input on that.
Well, I'm never really super happy with how things are, because I just feel like that if the fields aren't 30 deep, and that's not necessarily because of money or I got to have the biggest fields or this and that. I just think that I enjoy a really good race, and this is something that I'll go back to with New York Race Complex, the last race that we had at Gear Up last year. This will give you an indication of why I would say certain things. When we were at New York Race Complex, I was standing and watching the races through the middle of the field, and I said, wow, I would really love to have more of these up here. Why? Because it's a fantastic track, and the racing is just incredible. So this has always been my motivation to have better races. So the Northeast, I will say, is getting better. But for instance, this is another piece, and I'm all over the place at this point, but I basically went and I spoke to one of my kart shops at the end of the year, and I said, man, this is not good. I said, we're getting like 20 people here on a practice day, and, the track owner isn't going to be happy, and so on and so forth. And this wasn't at New York, this was somewhere else. And the guy said, man, he goes, you got to settle down. Things are a lot better now than they ever were here before. Okay. So that's a good thing in a sense, but that doesn't mean that it's a good thing, because at the end of the day, 20 people at a track isn't enough. What needs to be, we need to have 50, 60, 100. We need to have more. I think at this point in time, when it comes to like Gear Up and all the other programs that are out there, we're kind of all fighting for each other's customers. And that's a bad thing. I think what we need to do is we need to have a bigger environment. Everybody needs to be positive. The customers are our biggest, or the racers and the customers and the teams are our biggest promoters. At the end of the day, they need to believe in what we're doing, and they need to push as hard as we do to get people to come out and have a good time. And people also need to kind of keep people local for a while. I think that's the other thing is that I see in the sport. People seem to drive each other across the country for a race after they've been in it for 8 weeks. I think, people need to stay local longer. They need to get their foundation and they need to get their confidence level and their experience level up before they actually venture out and go do other stuff. And that's everywhere. Because I think what does happen in the sport is people go ahead and venture out really quickly. Then they get deflated because they don't do so well because they're up against the toughest competition out there, and then they leave the sport. So that means we don't keep them around as long.
Yeah, you know what? If somebody's going to go skiing and they're learning skiing, you take them to the bunny hill at the start, right? You teach them how to ski, you let them go. They move to an intermediate slope after that. You don't take them to a double diamond.
Yeah, I think the ladder system is a little bit skewed. It's probably always been skewed. I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for 30 years ago, but maybe it's just the way of the world. Things are changing, certainly, the way that we perceive everything, with the way that this fast information.
I think you're right. Marco, I think you're right. I think that a lot of the shops now, when they get a hold of somebody, especially if they're properly funded, they want to get them somewhere where they can spend, they can spend a lot of money and take them somewhere big. I totally agree with you that I'd like to see people spend more time at the club level. Maybe that's a licensing system that says, hey, you know what? You've only been racing for 8 months or 8 weeks. You can't come to this race. You're going to stay here at the club level for 2 years. Then you're going to play with regionals. That's another story where you and I can talk about for a long time. Now, we're coming to the end of this one here. We got about 2 or 3 minutes left to go. Anything you want to say potentially about the future of the F Series? Is there something, your vision down the line?
I think, I think continuously grow on what we have, build on what we have currently, make it stronger, make it more, see more continuity throughout the sport so that you can go from one place to the next, to the next, to the next. I think the one part that, and this is probably not a right place to go, but, everybody's doing their own thing. So, you got this group doing this engine and that on, and all they're doing. So nobody can go from one place to the next. And that's a bad thing in a sense. I think that's why one of the reasons why I'm a big proponent of, the OK scenario or the CIK thing where you have every manufacturer could be involved as long as they follow the rules and regulations. I think that's a brilliant program. Just nobody's ever adhered to it. I don't really understand why that's never happened. Because I think we do need, I feel like we're all too small. So we all need to bind together to make something larger. And that isn't something we're doing at all.
Words of wisdom there, folks, from Marco Oldhafer. Marco, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you coming on the EKN Radio Network for the first time. Great podcast. We were looking at maybe an hour. It got too good. This is going to be a 90-minute podcast. This is great stuff. I appreciate it.
Well, listen, you when I told you I could talk, and everybody will tell you that is a true fact.
You and I together, that's a 2-hour podcast right there.
Bermuda. That's what I say.
We need to go back to Bermuda.
Yes,
I like that idea.
That was a fun thing. And maybe this year that will happen for a Grand Prix there.
I'm hearing potentially October. Sketchy Barnes sent me a text. I got to get back to him. So maybe October and our return to Bermuda. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yes, I heard that as well.
Marco, thanks again. But I really appreciate it. Good luck with everything with the F Series. As I said before, throughout the broadcast, you've got such a great group of supporters. In the Facebook post that we put up to get questions, people are on there. We didn't get a lot of questions, a handful, but most of the guys were coming on saying, thank you. They support what you do. So obviously you've done the right thing. You got people behind you, and that program continues to grow. Congratulations.
Well, thank you for having us. And, I hope to speak to you soon. And I know we'll be involved in working hard together to make the sport bigger together.
That's what we do. We work together. We can definitely make it happen. Again, folks, Marco Oldhafer from the Gear Up F Series. Essentially, as I said, that cornerstone foundation regional program, regional national, if you want to call it that, up in the Northeast. They are really doing great things through the state programs as well. And again, we thank him for being on the EKN Radio Network, episode 17 of the Industry Insider. Folks, we are done with this one here. We hope you enjoy it. If you got a free weekend, have a look at that one in July 19th, 20th, 21st. It's the F Series at New York Race Complex. As Marco said, beautiful country up there, and definitely be one of those vacation races that you and the family can enjoy. Again, on behalf of Marco Oldhafer, my name is Rob Howden. Bye for now.